Clara's knees hit the frozen ground. The wagon was already pulling away. Her father's laughter echoed across the snow-covered plains, fading with the distance. She didn't chase it. She didn't cry out. She just knelt there, her worn dress soaking through, watching the only life she'd ever known disappear into the white horizon. Behind her, a stranger's boots crunched in the snow. The rancher who'd paid for a bride. The rancher who got the wrong one. If you want to see how Clara's story unfolds, subscribe to our channel and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far Clara's journey reaches. The wagon stopped. Clara gripped the wooden seat, her knuckles white. Wyoming stretched before her. Endless white. Endless cold. A land that didn't care if she lived or died. "Get out!" The driver didn't look at her. He'd barely spoken the whole journey. 3 days of silence. 3 days of watching her father's words play over and over in her mind. "She'll do. Same blood." "What's the difference?" Clara climbed down. Her boots sank into the snow. The cold bit through her thin stockings immediately. The ranch house stood 50 yards ahead. Smoke curled from the chimney. A few outbuildings scattered around it. Cattle in the distance, dark shapes against the white. And a man. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, hat pulled low. Even from here she could see his shoulders tense. "That him?" Clara asked. The driver was already turning the wagon. "Silas Callahan. Good luck, miss." The wheels creaked. The horses snorted. And then she was alone. Clara picked up her single bag. Everything she owned fit inside. A spare dress, her mother's Bible, a hairbrush with a cracked handle. 28 years of life, and this was all she had to show for it. She walked toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last. The man on the porch didn't move, didn't come to greet her. Just watched his face, unreadable, beneath the shadow of his hat. When she reached the bottom of the porch steps, he finally spoke. "You ain't Pearl." His voice was low, rough, like gravel scraping against stone. Clara lifted her chin. "No, sir, I ain't." Silence stretched between them. The wind picked up, throwing snow against her cheek. "The letter said Pearl Whitmore," he continued. "Said she was 22, yellow hair, delicate." "That's my sister." "Then where is she?" Clara's throat tightened. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times on the wagon, tried to find words that wouldn't break her apart. But now, standing here looking up at this stranger who'd paid good money for a bride, he wasn't getting the truth, felt like swallowing glass. "My father sent me instead." The man's jaw flexed. "Why?" "Because he thought it'd be funny." The words hung in the frozen air. Silas Callahan stared at her. His eyes were dark. Brown, maybe. Hard to tell in the fading light. But she could read the anger in them. The betrayal. "Funny," he repeated flatly. "Yes, sir. My family, they don't much care for me. Never have. Pearl was supposed to come. She was ready. Had her trunk packed and everything. But the morning the wagon came..." Clara's voice wavered. She steadied it. "My father grabbed my arm, shoved me forward, told the driver there'd been a change of plans." "And your sister just let him..." Clara remembered Pearl's face, the flash of relief in her pretty blue eyes. The way she'd stepped back, said nothing, let it happen. "Pearl don't go against our father. Nobody does." Silas descended one step, then another. He stopped just above her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "So you're telling me I paid $200 for a bride, and your father sent me the one he wanted to get rid of?" Clara didn't flinch. "That's what I'm telling you." "And what am I supposed to do with you?" The question cut deep. She'd asked herself the same thing her whole life. What was anyone supposed to do with Clara Jane Whitmore, too plain to marry off, too proud to be a servant, too stubborn to break no matter how hard they tried. "That's your choice, Mr. Callahan. You can send me back. Put me on the next wagon east. Tell my father his joke didn't work." She paused. "Or you can give me a chance to prove I'm worth more than what they think." His eyes narrowed. "Why would I do that?" "Because you need someone on this ranch. I can cook. I can clean. I can work harder than any woman you've met. I ain't pretty, but I ain't useless either." "You're mighty bold for someone standing in my snow. I got nothing left to lose, Mr. Callahan. They already took everything from me. My home, my dignity. My own sister stood there and watched our father throw me away like I was nothing." Clara's voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. "So yes, I'm bold. Because if I ain't bold, I might as well lay down in this snow and let the cold take me." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Silas turned and walked back up the steps. "There's a room at the end of the hall upstairs," he said without looking back. "You'll sleep there. Breakfast is at 5. You miss it, you don't eat." He pushed open the door. "And don't get comfortable. This ain't permanent. Soon as the weather breaks, I'll figure out what to do with you." The door closed behind him. Clara stood alone in the snow. Her legs trembled. Her eyes burned. But she didn't cry. She'd promised herself she wouldn't. Not here, not in front of him. She climbed the steps and pushed open the door. The inside of the house was warm. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. The furniture was simple but solid. A man's home. No curtains on the windows. No flowers. No soft touches. Silas was already at the far end of the room pouring himself a drink. He didn't acknowledge her. Clara found the stairs and climbed them slowly. The room at the end of the hall was small, a narrow bed, a wooden dresser with a cracked mirror, a single window that looked out over the white expanse of nothing. She set her bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sagged beneath her weight. She thought about her father's face, the cruel twist of his mouth, the way he'd laughed when the wagon pulled away. Good riddance, one less mouth to feed. She thought about Pearl, her beautiful selfish sister, standing in the doorway watching Clara be dragged away, doing nothing to stop it. "Better you than me, Clara, you than me." She thought about her stepmother, the woman who'd made sure Clara knew every single day that she was unwanted, unloved, a burden. If you'd been born pretty like Pearl, maybe things would be different. But you weren't, so they ain't. Clara pressed her hands together. "Don't cry. Don't you dare cry." But the tears came anyway, hot and silent, streaming down her cheeks, dripping onto her worn dress. She cried for the mother she'd lost, the one who'd died bringing Pearl into the world, the one who might have loved Clara if she'd lived. She cried for the father who'd never forgiven her for not being beautiful. She cried for the life she'd imagined, the husband who might have loved her, the children she might have had, the home that might have been hers, all gone now, replaced by this. A stranger's ranch, a stranger's cold eyes, a life that was never supposed to be hers. When the tears finally stopped, Clara wiped her face with the back of her hand. Enough. Enough feeling sorry for yourself. She stood up and looked in the cracked mirror. A plain face stared back at her, brown hair limp and tangled from the journey, gray-blue eyes red-rimmed from crying, a body too soft, too round, never right. She'd spent 28 years being told she wasn't enough. Maybe it was true, but maybe, just maybe, it wasn't. Clara straightened her shoulders. "You want to send me back, Silas Callahan?" she whispered to her reflection. "Fine, but I ain't going to make it easy for you." Morning came brutal and gray. Clara woke before the sun. Her body ached from the lumpy mattress. Her feet were cold. But she forced herself up, splashed water on her face from the basin, and dressed in her only other dress. She found the kitchen by smell. Coffee. Bacon. Someone was already awake. Silas stood at the stove, his back to her. He didn't turn when she entered. You're early. You said breakfast at 5. It ain't 5 yet. I know. He turned then. His eyes swept over her quick and assessing. She didn't look away. There's coffee in the pot, he said finally. Cups are in the cabinet. She poured herself a cup. The coffee was strong and bitter. She drank it anyway. For a few minutes neither of them spoke. Silas cooked. Clara watched. The fire popped and hissed. How old are you? He asked suddenly. 28. Old for a bride. Old for a lot of things. He almost smiled. Almost. The corner of his mouth twitched, then stilled. What happened to you? Why ain't you married already? Clara set down her cup. I was engaged once, 2 years ago. Man named Thomas Reed. Owned a dry goods store in Jefferson City. What happened? His mother took one look at me and told him he could do better. Said I was too plain, too fat, not fit to carry the Reed name. Clara's voice stayed steady, but her hands curled around the cup. Thomas agreed. He broke it off the next day. Married a banker's daughter 3 months later. Silas was quiet for a moment. His loss. Clara looked up, startled. What? I said his loss. He turned back to the stove. Man who lets his mother choose his wife ain't much of a man. It wasn't kindness exactly, but it wasn't cruelty either. Clara didn't know what to do with it. There's work to be done, Silas said. You said you can work. Time to prove it. He handed her a plate. Bacon, biscuits, eggs. More food than she'd eaten in days. Eat first, then I'll show you what needs doing. The ranch was larger than she'd realized. Silas led her through it in the gray morning light. The barn where 24 horses stamped and snorted. The chicken coop where a handful of hens huddled against the cold. The cattle pens empty now because the herd was grazing on the winter pastures. I got 3 hands, Silas explained. Hank, Eli, and Samuel. They handle the cattle and the heavy work. You'll handle the house, the chickens, and whatever else needs doing. Clara nodded. Hank's been here longest. Older fella, quiet, but he knows this land better than anyone. Eli's young and stupid, but he works hard. Samuel. Silas paused. Samuel talks too much. Don't let him bother you. I can handle talk. I reckon you can. They stopped at the edge of the property. The snow stretched out before them, unbroken and endless. This is Callahan land, Silas said. 800 acres. My father built this ranch from nothing. I've kept it going since he died. How long ago? 6 years. I'm sorry. Silas shrugged. He was a hard man. Taught me to work. Taught me the land don't care about your feelings. It'll kill you if you let it. Clara looked out at the white expanse. Sounds lonely. It is. He said it simply without self-pity. Just a fact. That why you sent for a bride. Silas turned to look at her. I sent for help. Someone to share the work. Share the winters. His jaw tightened. I didn't send for a wife to love. I ain't looking for that. Clara met his gaze. Neither am I. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. Good, he said. Then we understand each other. The first week was the hardest. Clara worked from before dawn until after dark. She cooked meals, scrubbed floors, fed chickens that pecked at her hands, hauled water that sloshed over her boots, mended clothes with fingers so cold she could barely hold the needle. Silas watched her. She felt his eyes on her back when she worked in the kitchen, caught him staring when she struggled with a bucket that was too heavy. But he never offered to help, never said a kind word. The ranch hands were worse. So you're the joke, Samuel said the first time they met. He was young, maybe 25, with a mean smile and meaner eyes. The ugly sister they shipped out. Clara kept her face blank. I'm Clara. I know who you are. Whole town knows. Callahan ordered a pretty bride and got... He looked her up and down. Well, you. Eli snickered behind him. Only Hank, the oldest of the three, stayed quiet. He tipped his hat to Clara and went back to his work. That night, Clara lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. They all knew. The whole town knew. She was a joke, a punchline. The fat, ugly sister nobody wanted. But she didn't leave. She didn't complain. She just kept working. The second week, the weather turned. A storm rolled in from the north. The sky went dark at noon. The wind howled like something alive, something hungry. Silas gathered everyone in the main house. "Storm's going to be bad," he said. "Nobody goes out unless they have to. Clara, you keep the fires going. Hank, check on the horses before it hits. Eli, Samuel, bring in extra firewood." The men moved quickly. Clara fed the fires until her arms ached. The storm hit at nightfall. Clara had never heard anything like it. The wind screamed against the walls. Snow piled against the windows, blocking out the light. The house groaned and shuddered like it might collapse. Silas paced by the door. "The cattle," he muttered. "If that fence breaks—" "You can't go out there," Clara said. He turned to her, eyes sharp. "I didn't ask your opinion." "I ain't giving an opinion. I'm stating a fact. You go out in that, you die. Simple as that. If I lose those cattle, you'll still be alive to rebuild. Dead men don't rebuild nothing." Silas stared at her. The fire cast shadows across his face, making him look older, harder. "You always this stubborn?" he asked. "Yes." He almost laughed. "Almost. Fine. We wait." They sat by the fire through the night. The storm raged outside. Inside, the silence was heavy, but not hostile. Somewhere around midnight, Silas spoke. "Why didn't you fight it?" Clara looked up. "Fight what? When your father put you on that wagon, why didn't you refuse, run, do something?" Clara stared into the flames. "Where would I go? I got no money, no friends, no one who'd take me in. My father made sure of that, kept me isolated, dependent. So when he decided to throw me away, I had no choice but to go. That ain't right." "No, it ain't. But it's the truth." She paused. "You ever been powerless, mister? Callahan ever had someone take everything from you, and there wasn't a damn thing you could do about it?" His jaw tightened. "Once. Then you understand." The fire popped. Snow hissed against the window. "There was a woman," Silas said quietly. "Years ago, before my father died. I thought I was going to marry her." Clara waited. "She was beautiful. Everyone said so. I thought I was the luckiest man in the territory." His voice hardened. "Turns out she was just waiting for something better. A merchant came through town, rich, fancy clothes, big promises. She left with him 2 days before our wedding. I'm sorry." "Don't be. She did me a favor. Showed me what she really was." He looked at Clara. "That's why I don't care about pretty. Pretty don't mean nothing. It's just a mask people wear." Clara absorbed his words. For the first time since she'd arrived, something in her chest loosened. "You're different than I expected," she said. "So are you." John. The storm lasted 3 days. When it finally broke, the world outside was buried. Snowdrifts piled higher than the windows. The cattle had scattered. 3 calves were missing. Silas and the men worked from dawn to dark, digging out, repairing damage, searching for the lost animals. Clara worked too. She shoveled paths, hauled firewood, cooked meals for men too exhausted to thank her. On the 3rd day after the storm, Hank found her in the kitchen. "Miss Clara." She looked up. "Just Clara, please." He nodded. A gentle man. Weathered face, kind eyes. The only one who'd treated her with respect since she arrived. "I wanted to say something." "Go ahead." Hank removed his hat, turned it in his hands. "I've been working this ranch for 15 years, seen a lot of women come through, Most of them couldn't handle it. Too soft, too scared. Gave up after a week. Clara waited. You ain't like them. He looked at her steadily. You're tough. Maybe tougher than you know. I just wanted you to hear that from someone. Clara's throat tightened. Thank you, Hank. He nodded, put his hat back on, and left. Clara stood alone in the kitchen. Hank's words echoed in her mind. You're tough. Maybe tougher than you know. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to her in months, maybe years. She went back to work. That night, Silas found her on the porch. The sky was clear for the first time in days. Stars scattered across the darkness like scattered diamonds. The cold was sharp but clean. You should be inside, he said. Needed some air. He stood beside her looking out at the snow. Hank told me what he said to you. Clara glanced at him. He shouldn't have bothered. He don't say things he don't mean. None of us do out here. Silas paused. He's right, you know. You ain't what I expected. When I saw you get off that wagon, I was angry, felt cheated, thought your father had made a fool of me. He did make a fool of you. That was the point. Maybe, but the joke's on him. Silas turned to face her. Because he sent me someone better than he knew. Someone who don't quit. Someone who works harder than any woman I've seen. His voice softened. Someone who told me to my face that I'd be a fool to go out in that storm. Clara's heart pounded. I was just stating facts. You were keeping me alive. He stepped closer. I ain't good with words, Clara. Never have been. But I want you to know. You got a place here, long as you want it. Clara searched his face. You said this wasn't permanent. I was wrong. The words hung in the air between them. Simple, direct, more than anyone had ever offered her. Why? She whispered. Why would you want me to stay? Silas looked at her for a long moment. The starlight caught his eyes, softened the hard lines of his face. Because when I look at you, I don't see what your father sees. I don't see what your sister sees. I see a woman who got knocked down and got back up. Every time, without complaint, without asking for help. He exhaled. I see someone worth keeping. Clara's eyes burned. Don't cry. Don't you dare cry. But these tears were different. Not grief, not shame, something else entirely. I'll stay, she said. For now. Silas nodded. The ghost of a smile crossed his face. For now. They stood together in the cold watching the stars, and for the first time since she arrived, Clara felt something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. The days after the storm settled into something Clara didn't expect. Routine. Purpose. A reason to wake before dawn and fall into bed exhausted but satisfied. She learned the rhythm of the ranch. Coffee before sunrise. Breakfast for 4 hungry men. Eggs collected while her fingers went numb. Bread baked in the old iron stove that burned too hot on one side. Laundry scrubbed in water so cold it turned her hands raw. And through it all, Silas watched. He didn't say much. That wasn't his way. But Clara felt his eyes on her when she crossed the yard. Caught him pausing at the window when she fed the chickens. Noticed how he lingered at the table after meals like he was waiting for something he couldn't name. 3 weeks after her arrival, the temperature dropped again. Clara woke to frost on the inside of her window. Her breath clouded in the dark room. She dressed quickly, layering everything she owned, and made her way downstairs. Silas was already in the kitchen. He looked up when she entered. Cold one today? I noticed. He almost smiled. Almost. Hank's checking the north fence. Said he saw signs of wolves yesterday. Wolves? They come down from the mountains when it gets this cold, looking for easy prey. He poured her a cup of coffee. Keep close to the house today. Clara took the cup, their fingers brushing briefly. She pretended not to notice the warmth that shot through her. I ain't afraid of wolves. Didn't say you were. Just said stay close. She met his eyes. Is that an order? It's a request. He held her gaze. Please. The word hung between them. Please. She'd never heard him say it before. Didn't think he knew how. Fine, she said. I'll stay close. He nodded and grabbed his hat from the hook by the door. I'll be back before dark. Then he was gone, and Clara was alone with the fire and the silence and the strange flutter in her chest that she didn't want to examine too closely. She spent the morning in the kitchen, kneading bread, peeling potatoes, trying not to think about the way Silas had looked at her, the way he'd said, please, like it cost him something. Around midday, she heard voices outside. Samuel and Eli were by the barn, their laughter carrying across the frozen yard. Clara moved to the window, watching. They had something cornered. A dog maybe, or a cat. She couldn't tell from this distance. Then she heard the yelp. Clara grabbed her shawl and ran outside. What are you doing? Samuel turned that mean smile spreading across his face. Just having some fun, Miss Clara. Nothing for you to worry about. She pushed past him and stopped. It wasn't a dog. It was a calf. Young, maybe a week old, its leg twisted at an angle that made Clara's stomach turn. It huddled against the barn wall, eyes wide with terror, crying for a mother that wasn't coming. Where did this come from? Eli shrugged. Found it in the north pasture. Must have got separated during the storm. Legs broke. Ain't worth nothing now. So you're tormenting it? Samuel laughed. We're putting it out of its misery, eventually. Just having a little fun first. Clara's blood went cold. She looked at the calf, then at the two men, then back at the calf. Get away from it. Excuse me? I said get away from it, now. Samuel stepped closer, his smile fading. You don't give orders here, Miss Clara. You ain't the rancher's wife. You ain't nothing but the joke he got stuck with. Clara didn't flinch. And you ain't nothing but a coward who tortures baby animals because it makes him feel like a man. Now step back before I make you. Eli's eyes went wide. Samuel's face twisted with anger. You fat cow. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm talking to a fool who's about to lose his job. Clara's voice was steady, even though her heart pounded against her ribs. Because when Silas gets back, I'm going to tell him exactly what I saw. And we'll see how funny he thinks it is. Samuel grabbed her arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. You ain't telling nobody nothing. Let go of me. Or what? The crack of a rifle split the air. Everyone froze. Hank stood 20 feet away, his gun aimed at the sky smoke curling from the barrel. His weathered face was hard as stone. The lady said, let go. Samuel's grip loosened. He stepped back, hands raised. We was just talking, Hank. No harm done. I saw what you was doing. Hank lowered the rifle, but didn't put it away. Get back to work, both of you. And if I catch you messing with livestock again, I'll tell Silas myself. Understand? Eli nodded quickly and scurried away. Samuel held Hank's gaze for a long moment, then spat in the snow and followed. Clara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank you. Hank walked over, his eyes moving to her arm where Samuel had grabbed her. You all right? I'm fine. She turned to the calf. But this little one ain't. Together they examined the animal. The leg was broken but clean. No bone poking through. Clara had seen worse on her father's farm. We could splint it, she said. Hank shook his head. Ain't worth the trouble. Better to put it down. I can save it. Miss Clara? I can save it. She looked up at him. Just give me a chance. Please. Hank studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him sigh. All right. But if it suffers, we end it. Deal. Deal. They carried the calf into the barn away from the cold. Clara worked quickly, tearing strips from an old blanket, finding straight sticks to use as a splint. Hank helped her set the leg, holding the calf still while she wrapped it tight. The animal cried the whole time. High, pitiful sounds that broke her heart. But she kept working, whispering soft words, promising things would be okay. When it was done, the calf lay exhausted in a pile of hay. Clara sat beside it, stroking its head. "You got gentle hands," Hank said quietly. "My mama used to say that, before she died." "How old were you?" 12. She died having Pearl. Clara's voice caught. "I raised my sister after that. Fed her, dressed her, taught her to walk and talk. And she still stood there and watched our father throw me away." Hank was quiet for a moment. "Family ain't always blood, Miss Clara. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we share a name with." "Then what is family?" "The people who show up, the people who stay." He stood brushing hay from his pants. "I'll bring some milk for the calf. You should get inside. Warm up." "I'll stay a while longer. Keep it company." Hank nodded and left. Clara sat alone with the calf, listening to its labored breathing, feeling the warmth of its small body against her side. "You and me," she whispered. "We're both broken things nobody wanted, but we're still here. That's got to count for something." The calf's eyes drifted closed. Clara stayed until the light faded. When Silas returned at dusk, she was waiting on the porch. He dismounted and stopped when he saw her face. "What happened?" "Samuel and Eli found a calf with a broken leg. They were tormenting it when I found them." Silas's expression hardened. "Where are they now?" "Hank sent them back to work. But Samuel—" She hesitated. "He grabbed me. Would have done worse if Hank hadn't stepped in." The change in Silas was immediate. His whole body went rigid. His hands curled into fists. "He touched you. It's fine. I'm fine." "Where is he?" "Silas." But he was already walking toward the bunkhouse, his stride long and furious. Clara hurried after him. "Silas, wait. It's handled. Hank took care of it." He didn't slow down. "Nobody touches you. Nobody." The words hit her like a physical force. She grabbed his arm, pulling him to a stop. "Listen to me. Please." He turned. His eyes were dark with rage, but underneath it, she saw something else. Fear. Concern. Something that looked almost like desperation. "If you go in there and beat him bloody, he wins," Clara said. "He'll tell everyone the rancher lost his head over the ugly sister. They'll laugh about it for months. Is that what you want?" Silas's jaw worked. "I want him to pay." "Then make him pay with work. Give him the worst jobs, the coldest shifts. Make his life miserable until he quits or learns his place." She held his gaze. "That's how you win. Not with fists, with patience." For a long moment, Silas didn't move. The rage in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by something softer. "When did you get so wise?" "I've had a lot of time to think. Nobody talks to the ugly one at parties." His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "Don't call yourself that." "It's what I am." "It ain't what I see." Clara's breath caught. The cold wind whipped around them, but she didn't feel it. All she felt was the warmth radiating from him, the intensity of his gaze, the impossible possibility of this moment. "What do you see?" she whispered. Silas's hand finally made contact, his rough fingers brushing her cheek so gently she almost couldn't feel it. "I see someone who saved a calf nobody else would bother with. Someone who stood up to a man twice her size. Someone who—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Someone who makes me want to be better than I am." Clara's eyes burned. "Don't cry. Don't you dare cry." "Silas." "Boss." They jerked apart. Hank was running toward them from the north pasture, his face grim. "What is it?" Silas called. "Wolves got into the herd. We lost 3 head, maybe more. The rest scattered." Silas cursed under his breath. He looked at Clara, something unfinished in his eyes, then turned to Hank. "Get the men. We ride now." Within minutes they were gone. The thunder of hooves faded into the darkness, leaving Clara alone in the yard. She pressed her hand to her cheek, where he'd touched her. It still burned. The men didn't return until well past midnight. Clara waited by the fire, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except the look in Silas's eyes. The way his voice had dropped when he said she made him want to be better. When the door finally opened, Silas came in alone. His clothes were covered in snow and something darker, blood maybe. His face was exhausted. "You should be asleep," he said. "Couldn't." She stood and moved toward him. "Are you hurt?" "Not my blood. Lost 5 cattle total, killed 2 wolves." He pulled off his gloves, his movement stiff. "Could have been worse." Clara took his coat, hung it by the fire to dry. "Sit, I'll make you something warm." He didn't argue, just sank into the chair by the hearth and closed his eyes. She heated soup, poured coffee, brought it to him without a word. He ate in silence, and she sat across from him, watching the firelight play across his tired face. When he finished, he set the bowl aside and looked at her. "Why are you still awake?" "I was worried." "About the cattle?" "About you." The words came out before she could stop them. She felt her cheeks flush. Silas studied her for a long moment. "Nobody's worried about me in a long time." "Well, I do, whether you like it or not." The corner of his mouth twitched. "I reckon I like it fine." Clara's heart hammered. She should go to bed, should put distance between them, should remember that this arrangement was temporary, practical, not meant for feelings that grew in the dark. But she didn't move. "That calf you saved," Silas said. "Hank told me about it. Said you stayed with it for hours." "Somebody had to." "Most people wouldn't bother. A calf with a broken leg ain't worth nothing to nobody." "Maybe I know what it feels like, to be broken and worthless and have everyone give up on you." Clara's voice dropped. "Maybe I couldn't stand to see it happen to something else." Silas leaned forward. "You ain't worthless, Clara. You never were. My whole life people told me different." "Then your whole life people were fools." He reached across the space between them and took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused, warm against her cold fingers. "I ain't good at this," he said quietly. "Talking, feeling, any of it. My father raised me to work, not to care. But these past weeks watching you, He struggled with the words. "I don't know what this is, but I know I don't want it to stop." Clara's throat tightened. "Silas, I can't be what you need. I'm not pretty. I'm not young. I'm not. You're everything." The word silenced her. Silas squeezed her hand. "I don't know what fool told you that pretty matters. But it don't. Not to me. What matters is showing up. What matters is staying. What matters is looking at a broken thing and seeing something worth saving." His voice cracked. "You looked at this ranch at me and you didn't run. You stayed. You fought. That's worth more than pretty could ever be." Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 28 years of being told she was nothing, and here was this man, this hard, silent, impossible man, telling her she was everything. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I've never been wanted before. Not really." "Then we'll figure it out together." Silas lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles. "One day at a time," the fire crackled. Clara let the tears fall. Not from sadness this time, from something she'd given up on ever feeling. They sat like that until the fire burned low. Hands intertwined two broken people, finding something whole in each other. In the morning, Clara woke to pale light streaming through her window. She lay still for a moment, replaying the night before. Silas's words. His hand in hers. The way he'd looked at her like she was something precious. Part of her wondered if she'd dreamed it. She dressed and went downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but there was fresh coffee on the stove. A note on the table in rough handwriting. Checking the herd. Back by noon. Save me some of that bread you made yesterday. Clara smiled. She spent the morning in the barn checking on the calf. Its leg was healing well. It stood when she entered wobbly but determined. Look at you, she said, stroking its head. Getting stronger every day. The calf nudged her hand, looking for food. Hungry thing, just like the men around here. She was laughing when she heard footsteps behind her. Talking to animals now? She turned. Samuel stood in the doorway of the barn, his face dark with anger. Clara straightened. What do you want? Just wanted to see the calf you care so much about. He stepped inside and she saw the knife in his hand. The one you made such a fuss over. Her blood went cold. Put that away. Or what? You'll tell Silas. Samuel laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think I'm scared of him? You think I'm scared of you? You should be. See, that's where you're wrong. He moved closer, and Clara stepped back, putting herself between him and the calf. I've been working this ranch for 2 years. 2 years of taking orders, breaking my back, getting nothing in return. And then you show up. The fat joke nobody wanted. And suddenly Silas is acting like you're something special. That ain't my fault. No, but you're going to pay for it anyway. He lunged. Clara grabbed the pitchfork leaning against the wall and swung. The handle caught Samuel across the face, sending him stumbling backward. Stay back. He touched his cheek, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. You stupid cow. I'm going to make you regret that. He charged again. This time Clara was ready. She drove the pitchfork forward, catching him in the shoulder. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to stop him cold. Samuel screamed. Clara! Silas burst through the barn door, rifle raised. He took in the scene in an instant, Clara standing over Samuel, pitchfork in hand, the wounded man clutching his shoulder. He came at me with a knife, Clara said, her voice shaking. I defended myself. Silas's face went white with rage. He crossed the barn in 3 strides, grabbed Samuel by the collar, and threw him against the wall. Give me one reason not to kill you right now. She's lying, Samuel gasped. She attacked me. I saw the knife, you piece of filth. Silas pressed his forearm against Samuel's throat. I saw everything. Clara lowered the pitchfork. Her arms were trembling. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her cold and hollow. Hank appeared in the doorway, Eli behind him. Get him out of here, Silas ordered without turning around. Take him to town. Leave him there. If I ever see his face again, I'll bury him in the north pasture. Hank and Eli dragged Samuel away. His curses echoed across the yard until they faded into nothing. Silas turned to Clara. His rage melted into concern. He crossed to her hands, hovering like he was afraid to touch her. Are you hurt? No, I'm... She tried to speak, but her voice broke. I'm fine. You're shaking. I know. He pulled her into his arms. Clara stiffened for a moment, surprised. Then she melted against him, burying her face in his chest. He was solid, warm, steady. An anchor in a storm she didn't know how to survive. You're safe, he murmured into her hair. You're safe now. I've got you. She clung to him, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. They stood like that for a long time, 2 people holding each other in a cold barn, while outside the wind howled and the snow fell and the world kept turning without them. When Clara finally pulled back, Silas cupped her face in his hands. You fought him off, he said, wonder in his voice. All by yourself. Told you I wasn't useless. I never thought you were. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Not for 1 second. Clara looked up at him. This man who'd been handed the wrong bride and decided to keep her anyway. This man who saw something in her nobody else could see. Silas, You don't have to say nothing. He pressed his forehead to hers. Just stay. That's all I'm asking. Stay. I ain't going anywhere. He exhaled long and shaky, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Good. Behind them, the calf let out a small cry. Clara laughed through her tears. I think someone's hungry. Silas looked at the calf, then back at her. And for the first time since she'd known him, he smiled. A real smile. One that reached his eyes and softened his whole face. Then, let's feed it. They worked side by side in the barn, caring for the broken thing they'd both decided to save. And in the quiet rhythm of their movements, Clara felt something shift inside her. This was home now. Not the building. Not the land. Him. The days after Samuel's attack changed something between them. Silas stayed closer now. Not hovering, but present. Clara would look up from her work and find him watching from across the yard. She'd turn a corner, and he'd be there asking if she needed anything, if she was all right, if she wanted company. She always said yes. A week after Samuel was sent away, a new ranch hand arrived. A quiet man named Joseph, older than Eli, with kind eyes and a gentle way with horses. Hank vouched for him, and that was enough for Silas. He won't give you trouble, Silas told Clara that evening. And if he does, you tell me. I can handle myself. You saw that. I know you can. He paused, something working in his jaw. But you shouldn't have to. Not alone. Not anymore. Clara didn't know what to say to that. So she just nodded and went back to her mending, feeling his eyes on her long after he'd gone. The calf was healing well. Clara visited it every morning, changing the bandages, coaxing it to stand and walk. By the second week, it was hobbling around the barn on its own, crying for her whenever she appeared. You've spoiled it, Hank said one morning, watching her feed the animal from a bottle. Going to think it's a lapdog instead of cattle. Nothing wrong with being loved. No, ma'am. Nothing wrong with that at all. He said it quietly, but Clara caught the meaning underneath. She pretended not to notice. It was Hank who first told her about the stallion. Black Devil, he called it. Been on this ranch 3 years. Silas's father bought it off a trader, thought he could break it. Couldn't. Silas tried too. Nearly got his skull kicked in for the trouble. Where is it now? Back pasture. Got its own corral out there. Silas won't sell it, won't kill it, won't let anyone near it. Hank shook his head. Stubborn man keeping a stubborn horse. Match made in hell. That night, Clara asked Silas about it. They were sitting by the fire, a routine that had become comfortable over the weeks. He with his whiskey, she with her mending. The silence between them no longer awkward, but easy. Familiar. Hank told me about the black stallion. Silas's hand tightened on his glass. What about it? Said you've been trying to break it for years. Trying and failing. He took a long drink. That horse is pure spite wrapped in muscle, hates everything and everyone. Why do you keep it? Because my father paid good money for it. And because... He stopped staring into the fire. Because some part of me still thinks I can reach it. Stupid, I know. It ain't stupid. It's a waste of time and energy on something that don't want to be saved. Clara set down her mending. Maybe it just ain't been saved the right way yet. Silas looked at her. Something flickered in his eyes. You thinking of trying? I'm thinking I'd like to see it, that's all. He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Tomorrow. I'll take you out there. But you stay behind the fence. That horse has killed men before. I'll be careful. You better be. His voice dropped. I ain't losing you to a horse. Clara's heart stuttered. She busied herself with her sewing, hoping he couldn't see the flush creeping up her neck. The next morning, Silas led her to the back pasture. The stallion was magnificent. Even Clara, who knew little about horses, could see that. Black as midnight muscles rippling under a gleaming coat, eyes wild with an intelligence that bordered on fury. It paced the corral like a caged storm, snorting and tossing its head when it saw them approach. Stay back, Silas warned. Clara stopped at the fence, her fingers curling around the rough wood. The stallion saw her and went still. Its ears flicked forward. Its nostrils flared. It's looking at me. It looks at everyone, right before it tries to kill them. But Clara didn't feel fear. She felt something else entirely. Recognition. Like she was looking into a mirror. What's its name? Don't have one. My father called it devil. I just call it the horse. Everything deserves a name. Not everything deserves the effort. Clara turned to look at him. You don't believe that. Silas held her gaze. Maybe I used to. She turned back to the stallion. It was still watching her, its body tense but not aggressive, waiting. Can I come back? She asked. Just to watch. I won't go inside the fence. Clara. Please. He sighed. Fine, but not alone. One of us goes with you every time. Deal. She came back the next day, and the next, and the one after that. Each time she stood at the fence and watched. Didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. The stallion watched her back, its wild eyes tracking her every breath. On the fourth day, she brought an apple. What are you doing? Silas asked, alarmed. Just going to set it on the fence post, see if it comes. It won't. But she did it anyway, placed the apple on the post, and stepped back, standing perfectly still. The stallion paced, snorted, tossed its head. Then slowly, it approached. Clara held her breath. Beside her, she felt Silas tense. The horse stopped 3 feet from the fence. Its nostrils flared, taking in the scent of the apple. Its eyes never left Clara's face. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the stallion stretched out its neck, grabbed the apple in its teeth, and retreated to the far side of the corral. Clara exhaled. Well, I'll be damned, Silas murmured. It just needed time, needed to know I wasn't a threat. It's a wild animal, Clara. It don't think like that. Everything thinks like that. She turned to face him. Everything that's been hurt learns to protect itself. The only way through is patience. Showing up day after day until they believe you ain't going to cause more pain. Silas stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Something deep and unguarded. You ain't just talking about the horse, are you? Clara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The days grew shorter, colder. Snow fell in thick blankets, burying the ranch in white silence. Clara kept visiting the stallion. Every day, rain or shine or blizzard, she stood at that fence. Sometimes she brought apples, sometimes carrots, sometimes just her presence. The horse grew used to her, started approaching the fence when she arrived, stopped flinching when she moved. 2 weeks in, it ate from her hand. She was alone that day. Silas had ridden out to check on a broken fence line, trusting her to stay safe. Clara had promised. But she hadn't promised not to try. The stallion approached slowly, its breath clouding in the cold air. Clara held out the apple, her arm steady, despite her pounding heart. That's it, she murmured. I ain't going to hurt you. Nobody's going to hurt you. The horse's lips brushed her palm. Warm, soft. Then it took the apple and stepped back, chewing slowly, its eyes never leaving hers. Clara smiled. Good boy. You ain't a devil at all, are you? Just scared? Just hurt? Just waiting for someone to see you? When Silas returned that evening, she told him what happened. He didn't believe her at first. Made her show him the next morning. And when the stallion approached the fence calm and curious, and ate from her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Silas just stood there, silent, stunned. How? He finally managed. I told you. Patience. I tried for 3 years, Clara. 3 years of fighting that animal. And you did in 2 weeks what I couldn't do in 3 years. You tried to break it. I just tried to understand it. She stroked the stallion's nose, feeling it lean into her touch. There's a difference. Silas watched her with the horse, and Clara saw something change in his face. The hardness that he wore like armor began to crack. Underneath, she glimpsed something raw, something vulnerable. You're remarkable, he said quietly. You know that. I'm just me. That's what makes it remarkable. That night by the fire, Silas sat closer than usual. Not touching, but close enough that Clara could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough that if she leaned just slightly to the left, her shoulder would brush his arm. She didn't lean, but she wanted to. "I owe you an apology," he said suddenly. Clara looked up from her mending. "For what?" "For how I treated you when you first arrived. For looking at you like you were a problem to be solved." He stared into the flames. "You deserved better than that. You were disappointed. I understood. That don't make it right." He turned to face her. "Your father sent you here as a joke, and I almost let him win, almost let his cruelty define how I saw you. But you didn't. No, because you wouldn't let me." His voice dropped. "You showed up every day, worked harder than anyone, never complained, never asked for pity, just showed up. What else was I supposed to do? Most people would have given up, would have waited for me to send them back, would have proven everyone right about them." Silas shook his head. "But not you. You're too stubborn for that." Clara laughed softly. "My mother used to say stubbornness was my best and worst quality." "Your mother was right." They sat in comfortable silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said. "Anything. That woman you mentioned, the one who left you for the merchant." She hesitated. "What was her name?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. "Elizabeth. Elizabeth Hartwell." "Did you love her?" "I thought I did. Turns out I just loved the idea of her. The pretty face, the soft voice, the way she made me feel like I'd won something." His jaw tightened. "When she left, I realized I'd never really known her at all. Just the surface. Just the mask. I'm sorry." "Don't be. Like I said, she did me a favor." He looked at Clara, his eyes searching her face. "Made me realize that pretty don't mean good. Sweet don't mean loyal. The things that matter, the things that last, they ain't the things you can see." Clara's heart beat faster. What things matter? Courage, kindness, showing up when it's hard. He reached out and took her hand. "The things you have. The things I was too blind to see at first." His fingers intertwined with hers. Warm, strong, sure. "Silas, I know I ain't much." He continued, his voice rough. "I know I'm hard and quiet and bad with words. But these past weeks, watching you, being with you, I've started to think maybe I don't have to be alone anymore." Clara's eyes burned. "You ain't alone. You haven't been for a while now." He squeezed her hand. "I know, and that scares me more than anything." "Why?" "Because the last time I let myself care about someone, they destroyed me. And if you—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "If you left, I don't think I'd survive it." Clara freed her hand and cupped his face. His stubble rasped against her palms. His eyes were dark, vulnerable, terrified. "I ain't Elizabeth," she said softly. "I ain't going anywhere." "You promise?" "I promise." Something broke in his expression. Relief. Hope. Something that might have been love. He leaned toward her, his breath warm against her lips. Her heart pounded. Her eyes fluttered closed. And then the door burst open. Hank stumbled in, covered in snow, his face panicked. "Boss, storm's coming in fast. Worst I've ever seen. We need to get the animals secured now, or we'll lose them all." Silas was on his feet in an instant, the moment shattered. "How long do we have?" "An hour, maybe less." "Get Joseph and Eli. Move the cattle to the south barn. I'll handle the horses." Hank nodded and disappeared into the growing blizzard. Silas grabbed his coat, then turned to Clara. His eyes were still dark with everything they hadn't said. "Stay inside. Keep the fires going. Don't come out for any reason." "I can help." "No." He crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. "I need to know you're safe. I can't focus out there if I'm worried about you. Please." Clara nodded. Be careful. Always am. He kissed her forehead quick and desperate, and then he was gone. Clara spent the next hours alone. The storm hit like nothing she'd ever experienced. The wind screamed against the house, rattling the windows, shaking the walls. Snow piled against the door faster than she could clear it. The temperature plummeted until her breath fogged even by the fire. She kept the flames burning. Boiled water, prepared bandages in case someone came back injured. Tried not to think about Silas out there in the chaos. Hours passed. The storm grew worse. Around midnight, the door crashed open. Silas staggered in, coated in ice, his lips blue, his body shaking uncontrollably. Hank and Joseph followed, looking nearly as bad. "Fire," Silas managed through chattering teeth. "Need fire." Clara sprang into action. She pushed him into the chair closest to the hearth, wrapped blankets around his shoulders, pressed a hot cup of coffee into his trembling hands. "What happened?" "Fence broke. Cattle scattered." His voice was barely a whisper. "We got most of them. Lost a few to the cold." "And the horses?" "Safe." "The stallion?" A ghost of a smile crossed his frozen face. "Damn thing came to me when I called it. First time it ever did that." Clara's heart swelled. It's learning to trust. Maybe we all are. She tended to all three men, making sure they were warm and fed before collapsing into her own chair. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. "You should sleep," Silas said. "So should you." "Can't. Need to keep watch in case the storm breaks something." "Then I'll keep watch with you." He didn't argue, just reached out and took her hand, holding it tight like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. They sat like that through the night, watching the fire, listening to the storm rage outside, not speaking, but communicating everything in the silence. Sometime before dawn, Clara's head dropped onto Silas's shoulder. He didn't move, didn't wake her. Just sat perfectly still, his thumb tracing circles on her hand, his eyes fixed on the flames. The storm lasted 3 days. When it finally broke, the world outside was buried. Snow drifted higher than the windows. The cattle that survived huddled together in the south barn. The ranch was an island in a sea of white. But inside the house, something had changed. Silas and Clara moved around each other differently now. Their hands brushed when passing dishes. Their eyes met and held across the room. Small touches, small moments building toward something neither of them could name. On the second night of being snowed in, Silas asked Clara to read to him. She laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but his face was serious. "My mother used to read to my father," he explained. "I remember the sound of her voice by the fire. It's one of the only good memories I have of this place." So Clara read. Her mother's Bible, the only book she owned. Stories of faith and redemption of lost sheep found, of prodigal sons returning home. Silas listened with his eyes closed, his face more peaceful than she'd ever seen it. When she finished, he opened his eyes and looked at her. "Thank you." "For what?" "For making this feel like a home again." Clara set down the Bible. "It always was a home, Silas. It just needed someone to fill it. It needed you." He stood and crossed to her chair, knelt before her so their eyes were level, took both her hands in his. "Clara Jane Whitmore, when you arrived here I thought my life was over. Thought I'd been cheated, tricked, cursed to live with a mistake someone else made." His voice cracked. "But you ain't a mistake. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I don't want to pretend otherwise anymore." Clara's tears spilled over. "Silas, I ain't asking for anything. I know you didn't choose to be here. I know this ain't the life you wanted. But if there's any chance at all that you could feel for me what I feel for you." "What do you feel?" He lifted her hands to his lips and kissed them. "Everything. I feel everything." Clara pulled her hands free and cupped his face. This beautiful, broken, stubborn man who had looked at her with contempt and learned to look at her with love. "I feel it too," she whispered. "I've felt it for weeks. I just didn't believe." "Believe it." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Believe me." She closed her eyes, felt his breath on her lips, felt the heat of him, the need, the promise. "Kiss me," she breathed. "Please." And he did. His lips met hers, gentle at first, questioning. When she responded, pressing closer, his arms wrapped around her and pulled her tight against his chest. The kiss deepened, became desperate, became a declaration of everything they'd been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Silas rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the night you told me not to go out in the storm." Clara laughed through her tears. "That long. That long." He kissed her again, softer this time. "And I plan to keep doing it for a very long time." She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on. Outside, the snow began to melt. And inside the ranch house, two people who had been thrown away by everyone they loved finally found something worth keeping. The weeks that followed were the happiest Clara had ever known. She woke each morning to find Silas already awake, watching her with a softness that made her heart ache. They took meals together, worked side by side, spent evenings by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about his mother, how she'd died of fever when he was 12, how his father had become hard and silent after that. She told him about her own mother, the woman she barely remembered, the absence that had shaped her whole life. They kissed often, by the fire, in the barn, behind the house where nobody could see. Each time felt like the first time. Each time left Clara breathless, wondering how she'd lived 28 years without this. The snow began to melt. The days grew longer. The ranch stirred back to life, and Clara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found her place. One morning in early March, Silas found her in the barn with the stallion. The horse had transformed over the winter months. Its wildness had softened into something calmer, something trusting. It followed Clara around the corral, now nudging her shoulder, searching her pockets for treats. "Still can't believe what you did with this animal," Silas said, leaning against the fence. Clara stroked the stallion's neck. "He just needed someone to be patient with him." "He needed you." Silas climbed over the fence and approached slowly. The horse watched him but didn't bolt. "You've got a gift, Clara. Way with broken things. Takes one to know one." He smiled and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You calling me broken? I'm calling us both survivors." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous habit." "Hush." But he was laughing. "I've been thinking about making this official." Clara's heart stuttered. "Making what official? Us." He turned her to face him. "I know we started out wrong. No, you didn't choose to come here. But things are different now. I'm different. And I want—" He swallowed hard. "I want you to be my wife, for real. Not because your father forced it, but because you want it." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Silas." "You don't have to answer now. I know it's a lot. I know you might need time to—" "Yes." He blinked. "What?" "Yes." She laughed through her tears. "Yes, I want to be your wife. Yes, I choose you. Yes to all of it." His face split into the widest smile she'd ever seen. He lifted her off the ground and spun her around right there in the corral, while the stallion watched with mild curiosity. "I'm going to make you happy," he promised, setting her down. "Every day for the rest of our lives. I swear it. You already do." He kissed her then, deep and certain, a promise sealed with more than words. They decided to have a small ceremony, just Hank and the other hands as witnesses. Maybe the preacher from town, if he could make the journey. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate, just two people choosing each other in front of God and anyone who cared to watch. Clara spent the next days in a haze of joy. She cleaned the house until it shone, mended her best dress, even attempted to style her hair differently, though it refused to cooperate. "You look beautiful," Silas told her one evening. "I look the same as always." "Exactly." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Beautiful." She didn't argue. For the first time in her life, she almost believed it. The morning, everything changed, started like any other. Clara was in the kitchen, kneading bread, humming a tune her mother used to sing. Silas had ridden out to check on the cattle, promising to be back by noon. The sun was warm through the windows, and Clara was thinking about what flowers might grow in a garden come summer. Then she heard the wagon. She wiped her hands on her apron and went to the door. Visitors were rare this far out, especially this early in the season. Maybe a trader, maybe someone looking for work. The wagon rolled to a stop in the yard, and Clara's blood turned to ice. Pearl climbed down from the seat, her golden hair gleaming in the sunlight. She wore a blue dress that matched her eyes, cinched at the waist to show off her perfect figure. A traveling bag hung from her shoulder. Behind her, the wagon driver began unloading a trunk. "Clara!" Pearl's voice rang out bright and false. "There you are. I've been traveling for weeks to find you." Clara couldn't move, couldn't speak. Her sister. Here. After everything. Pearl crossed the yard, her smile wide and poisonous. "Aren't you going to welcome me? It's been so long. What are you doing here?" "That's not very friendly." Pearl stopped a few feet away, her eyes sweeping over Clara's flower-dusted dress, her messy hair, her work-worn hands. "Look at you. Father said you'd become a servant. I didn't believe him." "I'm not a servant. This is my home." "Your home," Pearl laughed. "Oh, Clara, this was never supposed to be yours. You know that." Clara's hands curled into fists. "Why are you here, Pearl?" "I've come to fix Father's mistake." She smoothed her skirt. "He should never have sent you in my place. It was cruel. Funny, but cruel. You didn't seem to mind at the time. I was scared." Pearl widened her eyes, all innocence. "You know how Father gets. I couldn't go against him. But I've thought about it every day since. Poor Clara sent off to some rancher in the middle of nowhere. I had to make it right." "Make it right how?" Pearl's smile sharpened. "By taking your place, of course, the way it was supposed to be." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "What?" "Silas Callahan paid for a bride, a beautiful bride. He got you instead." Pearl stepped closer, close enough that Clara could smell her perfume, cloying and expensive. "I'm here to give him what he actually wanted. He doesn't want you. He doesn't know me yet." Pearl patted Clara's cheek. "But he will. And when he sees what he could have had, do you really think he'll settle for you?" Clara slapped her hand away. "Get off this property." "I don't think so." Pearl's eyes glittered. "I've come a long way, Clara. I'm not leaving until I get what I came for." The sound of hooves broke through the tension. Clara turned to see Silas riding in his face, shifting from confusion to concern as he took in the scene. He dismounted and strode toward them. "What's going on here?" Pearl transformed instantly. Her posture softened. Her smile turned warm and welcoming. She glided toward him like she was floating. "You must be Silas. I've heard so much about you." Silas's eyes darted to Clara, then back to Pearl. "Who are you?" "I'm Pearl Whitmore, Clara's sister." She extended her hand delicately. "The one you were supposed to marry." Clara watched Silas's face. Watched him take in Pearl's golden hair, her perfect figure, her dazzling smile. Everything she wasn't. Everything he'd originally paid for. "I don't understand," Silas said slowly. "What are you doing here?" "I've come to make things right." Pearl moved closer, her voice dropping to something intimate. "Father made a terrible mistake sending Clara. She's a good woman, I'm sure, but she wasn't what you asked for. I was." She placed her hand on his arm. "I'm here now. The way it should have been from the start." Silas stared at her hand on his arm. Something flickered across his face that Clara couldn't read. "Clara," his voice was careful, "maybe you should go inside." The words hit her like a blow. "What? I need to talk to Miss Whitmore alone." Pearl's smile widened. Clara's heart cracked. She walked into the house on numb legs, closed the door behind her, leaned against it, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He'd sent her away. He wanted to talk to Pearl alone. After everything they'd shared, everything he'd promised, he wanted to be alone with the beautiful sister. Of course he did. Hadn't she always known this was too good to be true? Hadn't she always known that someday someone prettier would come along and take everything she'd built? Clara pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. Through the window she could see them talking. Pearl gestured gracefully, laughing at something touching Silas's arm again. He stood stiffly, but he didn't pull away. Didn't send her off. Just stood there listening to whatever poison she was pouring in his ear. Clara couldn't watch anymore. She went upstairs to her room. The room that had become home. The room where Silas had kissed her for the first time, where he'd held her through nightmares, where he'd asked her to be his wife. She sat on the bed and stared at the wall. An hour passed. Then another. Clara heard the front door open and close, footsteps on the stairs. Then Silas was standing in her doorway, his face unreadable. "She's staying in town," he said. "At the boarding house." Clara didn't look at him. Good for her. "She's going to come back tomorrow. Wants to talk more." "I'm sure she does." Silas crossed the room and knelt before her. "Clara, look at me." She forced her eyes to meet his. The tears she'd been holding back threatened to spill. "I didn't know she was coming," he said. "I swear to you, I had no idea." "Would it have mattered if you did? What does that mean?" "It means what it means." Clara's voice broke. "You saw her, Silas. You saw what she looks like. What I could never look like. And you sent me away so you could talk to her alone. I sent you away because I didn't want you to hear the things she was saying." "What things?" His jaw tightened. "She said you tricked me. Said you convinced your father to send you because you wanted what was supposed to be hers. Said you're jealous and manipulative, and I should send you back before you cause more damage." Clara's stomach turned. "And you believed her?" "No." He gripped her hands. "I told her she was a liar. Told her I knew exactly what happened, that your father threw you away like garbage, and she stood there and let him. Told her I don't want her, never wanted her, that the woman I want is already here." Clara's breath caught. "You said that?" "Every word." He cupped her face in his hands. "Clara, I don't care that she's beautiful. I don't care that she's what I thought I wanted. She ain't you. And you're all I want." "Then why is she coming back tomorrow?" Silas's expression darkened. "Because she won't take no for an answer. She's got it in her head that I only want you because I don't know any better. Thinks if she just shows me what I'm missing, I'll change my mind." "Will you?" "No." He said it firmly without hesitation. "Never." Clara wanted to believe him. Desperately wanted to believe him. But 28 years of being second best had carved deep grooves in her heart. "I won't fight her for you," she said quietly. "I won't beg. I won't plead. I've spent my whole life being compared to her and found wanting. I won't do it again. I ain't asking you to fight. I ain't asking you to beg." Silas pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm asking you to trust me, to believe that what we have is real, that I'm not going to throw it away for a pretty face and empty promises. I want to believe you." "Then believe me." He kissed her softly. "Give me until tomorrow. Let me send her away properly. And then we'll never speak of her again." Clara closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed at her to protect herself, to pack her bag and leave before she could be hurt again, to run before he had a chance to choose someone else. But Silas's hands were gentle on her face. His voice was steady with certainty, and something in her heart battered as it was whispered that maybe this time was different. "Okay," she breathed. I'll trust you. That's all I ask. He held her for a long time there in the room that had become theirs while the sun set outside and the future hung uncertain in the balance. Pearl returned the next morning just as she'd promised. Clara stayed inside watching through the window. She'd agreed to trust Silas, but she hadn't agreed to be blind. Pearl wore a different dress today, pink with lace at the collar cut low enough to draw the eye. Her hair was pinned up in elaborate curls. She looked like a painting come to life. Silas met her in the yard. His arms were crossed, his stance closed. Even from the window, Clara could see the tension in his shoulders. They talked for a long time. Pearl smiled, gestured, moved closer. Silas stepped back, shook his head, spoke in words Clara couldn't hear. Pearl's smile faltered. She reached for his arm. He pulled away. Clara's heart pounded. Then Pearl's expression changed. The sweetness melted away, replaced by something hard and ugly. She pointed at the house at Clara behind the window. Her voice rose loud enough to carry. "You're making a fool of yourself. Everyone in town is laughing at you, the rancher who chose the fat, ugly sister over the beautiful one." Silas's response was too quiet to hear, but Clara saw his fists clench at his sides. Pearl kept going. "She's manipulated you. Can't you see it? She couldn't get a husband on her own, so she stole mine. She's always been jealous of me, always wanted what was mine. She ain't yours to take." Silas's voice finally rose loud enough for Clara to hear. "And I ain't either. You paid for me. You sent for me. Father made a mistake and I'm here to fix it. The only mistake was thinking a woman like you could ever be worth Clara's shadow." Pearl recoiled like she'd been slapped. For a moment, her mask cracked completely, revealing the fury beneath. "You'll regret this," she spat. "When you're stuck with her growing old and ugly together, you'll remember what you could have had." "I'll remember the best decision I ever made." Silas stepped toward her, and Pearl stumbled back. "Now get off my land, and don't come back." "You can't. I can, and I am." He pointed toward the wagon. "Leave. Now." Pearl's face twisted with rage. She looked toward the house, and Clara felt their eyes meet through the glass. All the hatred her sister had hidden behind sweet smiles came boiling to the surface. "This isn't over," Pearl hissed. "Yes, it is." Silas turned his back on her and walked toward the house. Pearl stood frozen for a moment. Then she screamed in frustration, gathered her skirts, and stormed toward the wagon. The driver helped her up, and within minutes they were pulling away, dust rising behind them. Clara met Silas at the door. He looked exhausted, drained. But when he saw her, a small smile crossed his face. "It's done. I heard some of it. The part where I told her she ain't worth your shadow. That part. I meant it." He pulled her into his arms. "Every word. She's nothing compared to you, Clara. Nothing." Clara held him tight. "Thank you for choosing me. Wasn't a choice. Was the easiest decision I ever made." He pulled back to look at her. "Now, can we please go back to planning our wedding?" Clara laughed through sudden tears. Yes, we can." But even as they walked back into the house, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that Pearl wasn't finished. Her sister had never accepted defeat gracefully, had never let anyone take something she considered hers. This wasn't over. Clara knew it in her bones. The days passed quietly, too quietly. Clara tried to focus on the wedding, on the future, on the life she and Silas were building. But a shadow hung over everything, a waiting she couldn't name. It was Hank who brought the news. He rode in one evening, his face grim, and asked to speak with Silas alone. Clara watched from the window as they talked by the barn. Watched Silas's face darken, his hands curl into fists. When he came inside, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. "What is it?" Clara asked. "What did Hank say?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. Then he met her eyes. "Your sister's been talking in town, telling people you're not really my wife, that you tricked me, trapped me, that I'm being held against my will." Clara's stomach dropped. "That's not true." "I know it ain't, but people believe what they want to believe. and she's very convincing. What does that mean for us? Silas crossed to her and took her hands. It means people are talking. Some of them are saying I should send you back, that I'm being made a fool of. His grip tightened. It means this ain't going to be easy, Clara. Even with her gone, the damage is done. Clara absorbed his words. The life she'd been building, the acceptance she'd finally found, all of it crumbling because her sister couldn't stand to lose. Do you want me to leave? No. He said it fiercely. Never. Then I won't. She lifted her chin. Let them talk. Let them laugh. I've survived worse than gossip. Silas searched her face. You're sure? I'm sure. She squeezed his hands. I chose you, Silas Callahan, and I'm not going to let my sister take that away from me. He pulled her into his arms. God, I love you. Clara froze. They hadn't said those words yet. Not out loud, not directly. What did you say? I love you. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes fierce with emotion. I should have said it sooner. Should have said it 100 times by now, but I was scared. Scared you'd leave, scared you didn't feel the same, scared that saying it out loud would make it real and then it could be taken away. Silas, I love you, Clara Jane Whitmore. I love your stubbornness and your strength and the way you never give up. I love that you saved a calf nobody wanted and tamed a horse nobody could touch. I love that you stood up to a man twice your size and told me not to go out in a storm. His voice cracked. I love you, and I don't care who knows it. Clara's tears spilled over. I love you too. Yeah. She laughed through her tears. I've loved you for weeks, maybe longer. I just didn't think I was allowed to. You're allowed. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. You're allowed to have everything, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. They held each other in the fading light, two people who had been broken and discarded, finding wholeness in each other. Outside, the world kept turning. People kept talking. Pearl's poison kept spreading. But in the ranch house, surrounded by warmth and love and the promise of tomorrow, Clara finally believed she was exactly where she was meant to be. The gossip spread faster than wildfire. Within a week, Clara couldn't walk into town without feeling eyes on her back. Whispers followed her through the general store. Women turned away when she approached. Men smirked and nudged each other. She held her head high anyway. You don't have to come with me, she told Silas one morning. I can handle it. I know you can. He helped her into the wagon. But you shouldn't have to. Not alone. They rode into Copper Creek together. Clara felt the stares the moment they entered the main street. Silas's jaw was tight, his hands steady on the reins. At the general store, Mrs. Patterson pretended not to see Clara at first, kept arranging jars on the shelf, her back turned. Excuse me, Clara said. I'd like to buy some flour. Mrs. Patterson turned slowly. Her eyes swept over Clara with thinly veiled contempt. We're out. The barrel behind you is full. That's spoken for. Silas stepped forward. By who? Mrs. Patterson's face paled slightly. Mr. Callahan, I didn't see you there. Answer the question. Who spoke for that flour? Well, that's what I thought. Silas's voice was cold. Fill her order, now. Mrs. Patterson's hands trembled as she scooped flour into a sack. She didn't meet Clara's eyes. Outside, Clara let out a breath. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Silas loaded the flour into the wagon. And I'll keep doing it until they learn to treat you with respect. They never will. Not as long as Pearl's story is the one they believe. Then we'll change the story. Clara looked at him. How? Silas didn't answer. But there was something in his eyes, a determination that made her heart race. The following Sunday, Silas insisted they attend church. Clara hadn't been inside a church since she left Missouri. Hadn't felt welcome in one for years. But Silas was firm. We're going, Together, and everyone's going to see us." The little white church was packed when they arrived. Every pew filled, every eye turning as Silas pushed open the door. Clara's stomach churned. She wanted to run, wanted to hide, wanted to be anywhere but here, under the scrutiny of people who had already decided she was worthless. But Silas took her hand and held it tight. "Together," he murmured. "Remember." They walked down the aisle. Clara heard the whispers, saw the pointed looks, felt the judgment pressing against her like a physical weight. Silas led her to the front pew. His family's pew, she realized. The one that had been empty since his father died. They sat. The whispers grew louder. Then the preacher took the pulpit. "Before we begin today's service," Reverend Miller said, "Silas Callahan has asked to address the congregation." Clara's head snapped toward Silas. "What are you doing? What I should have done weeks ago." He stood and walked to the front of the church. Every eye followed him. The silence was deafening. "Most of you know me," Silas began. His voice was steady, carrying to every corner of the room. "Know my family. Know this land. You also know that a few months ago I sent for a bride. And you know that I didn't get the one I asked for." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara's face burned. "What you've heard since then is that I was tricked, cheated. That the woman sitting in my family's pew manipulated her way here and trapped me into keeping her." Silas's eyes found Clara's. "That's a lie." The murmurs grew louder. "Clara Whitmore came to me through no choice of her own. Her father threw her away like garbage. Her sister stood by and watched. She arrived at my ranch with nothing but the clothes on her back and more courage than any person I've ever known." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "She worked from before dawn until after dark, never complained, never asked for anything. When my ranch hands mocked her, she endured it. When one of them attacked her, she fought back. When a storm threatened to destroy everything I'd built, she stood beside me and helped save it." Silas's voice rose, filling the church. "She tamed a horse I couldn't break, saved a calf nobody else would bother with, made my house into a home for the first time since my mother died." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And somewhere along the way, she made me fall in love with her." Gasps echoed through the congregation. "I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to defend her. The woman you've been gossiping about, judging, turning away from. She's worth more than every one of you combined. And I won't let another day pass with you thinking otherwise." He turned to face Clara directly. "Clara Jane Whitmore, I asked you to be my wife in private. Now I'm asking you in front of God and everyone in this town." He walked toward her, stopping at the edge of the pew. "Will you marry me, here today, right now?" Clara couldn't breathe. The church had gone completely silent. "Silas, I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to give anyone another chance to come between us. I want you to be my wife. Now. Forever." She stood on shaking legs. The tears were flowing freely now, but she didn't care. "Yes." The word echoed through the church. Silas's face split into a smile. He turned to the preacher. "Reverend Miller, if you'd do the honors." The old preacher looked stunned for a moment. Then he smiled too. "It would be my pleasure." The ceremony was simple. No fancy dress, no flowers, no elaborate vows written on paper. Just two people standing before God and a congregation that had judged them both, declaring their love for all to hear. "Do you, Silas Ezra Callahan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "Do you, Clara Jane Whitmore, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Clara's voice was clear and strong. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." Reverend Miller smiled. "You may kiss your bride." Silas cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Mrs. Callahan." "I love you too." He kissed her. Deep and certain, right there in front of everyone. When they broke apart, Clara expected silence, expected disapproval, expected the congregation to turn their backs. Instead, she heard clapping. It started with one person, then another, then more. She turned to see Hank on his feet, his weathered face split in a grin. Joseph beside him. Eli clapping so hard his face was red. Then others joined in. The baker who'd refused to sell her bread. The seamstress who'd looked through her like glass. One by one they rose to their feet, and the church filled with applause. Not everyone joined. Clara saw the holdouts, the ones still clinging to Pearl's lies. But they were the minority now. The tide had turned. Silas wrapped his arm around her waist. Still think you're not worthy. Clara looked at the sea of faces. At the people who had doubted her, judged her, dismissed her. And at the ones who were choosing to see her differently. I'm starting to believe it. After the service, people approached them. Some offered congratulations. Some apologized for believing the rumors. Mrs. Patterson, the woman from the general store, couldn't meet Clara's eyes. I'm sorry, she mumbled. I shouldn't have. I was wrong. Clara could have been cold, could have turned away, given her a taste of her own medicine. Instead, she nodded. Thank you for saying so. Because she understood something now, something she'd been too hurt to see before. These people weren't cruel by nature. They were just people, flawed, easily swayed, quick to believe the worst, but capable of changing their minds when shown the truth. Just like the stallion, just like Silas, just like herself. They returned to the ranch as husband and wife. Hank and the others had decorated the house while they were gone. Wildflowers in jars, a cake from somewhere, a hand-painted sign that read, "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan." Clara laughed through her tears. When did you plan all this? Been planning it for weeks, Hank admitted. Just waiting for the boss to get his act together. Silas shook his head. Should have known you were all conspiring. Someone had to. You two were taking forever. The celebration lasted until dark. Food and laughter and stories shared around the table. For the first time since she arrived, Clara felt like she belonged somewhere, like she had a family. When the others finally left, Silas took her hand and led her outside. The stars stretched overhead, endless and bright. The same stars that had watched over her first night here when she'd cried herself to sleep in a bare room, convinced she'd never be anything but unwanted. What are you thinking? Silas asked. I'm thinking about how different everything is. How I came here with nothing, and now... She gestured at the ranch, the house, the life they'd built. Now I have everything. You deserve everything. I'm starting to believe that too. He pulled her close. Good, because I'm going to spend the rest of my life reminding you. They stood together in the darkness, husband and wife, two broken people who had found wholeness in each other. A month later, a letter arrived. Clara recognized the handwriting immediately. Pearl's elegant script, so different from her own practical hand. She almost threw it in the fire unread. But something made her stop. What is it? Silas asked. Letter from my sister. His jaw tightened. What does she want? Only one way to find out. Clara opened the envelope. Inside was a single page, the words cramped and uneven, nothing like Pearl's usual careful penmanship. Clara. I heard about the wedding. The whole town is talking about it. About Silas standing up for you. About how wrong everyone was. I wanted to hate you. I've spent my whole life being told I was better than you. Prettier, more valuable, more deserving. And when you got something I wanted, I couldn't stand it. But I've been thinking about what Silas said, about how Father treated you, about how I stood there and watched and did nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For what I said in town. For what I tried to do. For all the years I let you believe you were less than me. You're not. You never were. I was just too scared to see it. I'm leaving Missouri. Going east to start over somewhere no one knows me. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without Father's voice in my head. I don't expect to hear from you, but if you ever want to write, I'd like that. Your sister, Pearl. Clara read the letter twice. Then she handed it to Silas. He read it in silence. When he looked up, his expression was guarded. Do you believe her? I don't know. Clara took the letter back, folding it carefully. But I think she means it, at least right now. Are you going to write back? Clara thought about it. All the years of cruelty. All the times Pearl had stood by while their father tore Clara down. All the damage she'd tried to do. But also Pearl, raised by the same father, shaped by the same poison. Pearl, who had never known anything but being valued for her beauty. Pearl, who had finally looked in the mirror and seen something she didn't like. Maybe, Clara said. Someday, when I'm ready. Silas nodded. That's more than she deserves. Probably. But holding on to anger is exhausting. Clara looked at him. And I'm tired of being angry. I just want to be happy. Then be happy. He pulled her into his arms. You've earned it. Spring arrived in full force. The snow melted. The grass turned green. The cattle grew fat in the pastures. And Clara's garden began to bloom. She spent hours on her knees in the dirt planting seeds, coaxing life from the stubborn Wyoming soil. Silas helped when he could, though he admitted he knew more about cattle than flowers. My mother used to have a garden, she told him one afternoon, before she died. I remember helping her plant tomatoes. It's one of the only memories I have of her. What else do you remember? Her voice, soft, kind. She used to sing while she worked. Clara's throat tightened. I think she would have liked you. I think I would have liked her. Silas kissed the top of her head. She raised a hell of a daughter. The calf Clara had saved followed her around the ranch like a dog, full-grown now, healthy and strong, with only a slight limp to show for its broken leg. She'd named it Lucky. That animal is useless, Hank told her, shaking his head. Won't let anyone near it but you. That's not useless, that's loyal. Same thing to a rancher. But Clara saw the way Hank smiled when he thought she wasn't looking, saw the way he slipped Lucky extra feed when no one was watching. The old man had a soft heart, no matter how hard he tried to hide it. The stallion, too, had transformed. Clara rode it now, something no one else had ever managed. The black horse that had been called Devil now came when she whistled, followed her across the fields, stood patiently while she brushed its coat. You're a miracle worker, Silas told her, with animals and with men. Just patient. She stroked the stallion's nose. Patience is all it takes. Patience and love. Same thing sometimes. Summer brought visitors, travelers passing through, traders looking to do business, ranch hands seeking work. The Callahan Ranch had become something of a legend. The story of Silas and Clara spreading far beyond Copper Creek. The rancher who chose love over beauty, people called it. Some thought it was romantic. Others thought Silas was a fool. But everyone had an opinion. Clara didn't mind the attention anymore. She'd spent her whole life being invisible. Being seen, even if some of the looks weren't kind, felt like progress. One evening as summer faded into autumn, Silas found Clara on the porch. She was watching the sunset wrapped in a shawl he'd bought her in town. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. Her face was peaceful. You look happy, he said. I am happy. Good. He sat beside her, taking her hand. Because I have something to tell you. Clara looked at him. What is it? Hank's talking about retiring. Says his bones are too old for another Wyoming winter. Silas squeezed her hand. I asked him to stay on. Help me train the new hands. He said he'd only do it if you wanted him to. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Of course I want him to. He's family. That's what I told him. Silas smiled. He cried. Don't tell him I said that. I won't. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn orange and pink and gold. Clara. Yes. I want you to know something. Silas turned to face her, his expression serious. The day you arrived, I thought my life was ruined. Thought I'd been cheated, cursed, punished for something I didn't do. I know. Let me finish. He took both her hands. That day I looked at you and saw a mistake, a problem, something to be dealt with and discarded. Clara flinched. Even now the memory hurt. But I was wrong, so wrong. His voice cracked. You weren't a mistake, Clara. You were the answer to a prayer I didn't know I was praying. You were everything I needed and nothing I expected. And every day since you've proven that the best things in life are the ones we don't plan for. Silas, I'm not good with words, you know that, but I need you to understand. He lifted her hands to his lips. I would go through it all again. The disappointment, the anger, the confusion, all of it. Because it led me to you. Clara's tears spilled over. I love you. I love you too. He wiped her tears with his thumb. Mrs. Callahan. She laughed through her tears. Say that again. Mrs. Callahan, my wife, my partner, my everything. He kissed her as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in shades of gold. The first snow of winter fell on their 1-year anniversary. Clara stood at the window, watching the flakes drift down, remembering another winter, another arrival, another version of herself who had been so lost, so broken, so convinced she would never be enough. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had survived rejection and cruelty and doubt. Someone who had learned that her worth wasn't determined by her face or her figure or what other people thought of her. Someone who had been chosen. Silas came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? The day I arrived. How scared I was. How certain I was that you'd send me away. And now, Clara turned in his arms, looking up at the face she'd grown to love. The hard jaw, the dark eyes, the rare smile that she saw more often now than anyone else. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. Good. He kissed her forehead. Because you're stuck with me. I can live with that. Outside, the snow continued to fall. The ranch was quiet. The animals settled the world wrapped in white silence. Inside, Clara Callahan stood in the arms of her husband, surrounded by warmth and love, and the certainty that she had finally found her place. Her father had sent her as a joke. Her sister had tried to replace her. The world had told her she was worthless. But one man had seen past all of it, had looked at the broken, discarded, unwanted woman and chosen her anyway, had loved her, not despite who she was, but because of it. Clara smiled against Silas's chest. They had sent her away expecting nothing. She had found everything, and that was no joke at all. They sent the wrong sister, her father had said. But standing here now, Clara knew the truth. They had sent exactly the right one.